The Florida Podcast Network, the voice of Florida.
This is Gerard with episode number 28 of Florida's Fresh Mix on the Florida Podcast Network, a random mix of Florida's freshest personalities. Listen in.
Hello, Fresh Mix listener. Happy Fresh Mix Friday. My name is Amber, and I am the lead content producer for the Florida Podcast Network. And I'm with Gerard, aka your host. What's up, Gerard?
What's up, girl? You know, we're about to talk about something I knew literally almost nothing about.
Same.
So I was excited about this one. I can't wait for people to hear it because I'm a brainiac, and now I feel like a vegan maniac.
Same, Gerard. I mean, I totally relate when you say you had no knowledge of this subject at all. Folks, we are talking veganism with Sean Russell, the founder and creator and CEO of SoFlo Vegans. We have their website link in our show notes. You guys should totally check them out. Great content, all about South Florida's vegan culture. This is a very dynamic interview, Gerard, I must say.
Well, I hope that our guests feel that I asked the questions that they wanted to ask because I was really just trying to learn. I was trying to learn about the differentiations between, like, you know, being vegan, vegetarian. But then he also offered the difference between being plant-based in your diet, which I did not even think of. So it was a great learning experience from a factual perspective, but then also from kind of like, why do this? Why, you know, I don't think there's any kind of logical reason, you know, for someone to say, oh, no, you must eat animals, right? But he really put into perspective, like, why he decided to do this, why it's important, both from a physiological and a moral perspective. I had never heard any of this before, and I was thrilled throughout.
I completely agree, Gerard. This was all fresh to me, no pun intended, and very enlightening. And just like you said, the questions that I myself, who am not vegan, I think you hit most of them, Gerard. And I hope the listeners will appreciate that. By far, my favorite part of this interview was when you told our guest, Sean, the proud vegan, that you were a proud meatitarian.
I had that locked and loaded.
Yes. And you know what, guys, no spoilers, but Sean took that with lots of grace and compassion, and he gets into that really mentality for sure. And it's just a great conversation between two different worlds, and definitely a favorite in my books.
I use the word meatitarian all the time, but with no malice. But I just wanted to run it by him and see if he had any particular reaction. But as you so eloquently stated, he turned it around. And obviously, I wasn't trying to throw a barb at him. I was just sharing that this is a word that I use all the time. And also, I just happened to have a very interesting dinner experience, which I don't have frequently. I just happened to have had that particular dinner experience the day before or the night before we had this interview. And I just thought it was so coincidental that I had to mention it. And then and I also brought up my phrase that I think I made up, but you know, whatever. But I hope that people listen to this and they get their questions answered, and it sparks some discussion, and that people can eat it up.
Exactly. And that they go check out SoFlo Vegans, because they have a beautiful website. I'm not trying to like hype them up or give them this like huge plug, but it's a pretty cool content on there, and they can learn a thing or two. If you're in the South Florida area, you can check out some local vegan hotspots thanks to Sean and his team over there. So good stuff.
The only thing is that, you know, as you'll see from this interview, we don't want to push anything on anybody. So you don't have to push it like salt and pepper, but add some salt and pepper to those vegan recipes if you decide to go that route. So I'm done with the puns for now.
All right, Gerard. Let's go ahead and jump into the conversation with the man behind SoFlo Vegans, Sean Russell.
Hello, 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 Fresh Mix listeners. Today we are here with Mr. Sean Russell of now. Am I saying this SoFlo Vegan, South Florida Vegan? What? How am I calling this?
You got it right, nailed it right on the head. SoFlo Vegans, but it stands
So,
for South Florida.
it's funny because I saw another interview that you had given, and I heard you say SoFlo Vegans, and I was like, that is such a cool name. Not only because it's like South Florida, but also because when you say it the way you say it, it kind of sounds like soulful vegans. And so I don't know if that's intentional or not, but it's just a cool name either way, however you interpret it. All right, so listen, man, so you've got an interesting history and you're doing so many. You're basically running the gamut on the vegan world these days. Where were you before you had even a thought of being a vegan?
So I'm going to give you a little backstory before I went vegan, and it's going to make sense once I finish my origin story. Mm-hmm. I've been in media and marketing since 1996. I literally went to high school to learn it for 4 years, went to college, got my degree, and then multiple projects in this space, worked with a lot of great organizations as well. So that created a habit, a practice rather, of building communities around my interests, media networks, communities around my interests. That was anime, music, education, all that. So around 2003, I decided, okay, I'm going to stop eating red meat. Got that out of my system. 2006, all dairy out of there. Then it was around 2000, around that time period, 2006, 2008, I decided, okay, I want to take my health to the next level. I packed on a couple of pounds. I didn't like how I felt in my body. So I searched, I found this program called Beyond Diet. Mm-hmm. And through that, I lost a ridiculous amount of weight. I ended up losing over 60 pounds as a result. But that was just through eliminating a lot of these things from my diet. And then I had a
hold on one second. So that explains the 2008 transition, but go back to 2006. So what made you start, removing dairy and all these other things? What inspired you to do all that?
Just eccentricities, there'd be times where I'm like, I'm just going to stop eating chocolate, and it's just because to see if I could do it. Mm-hmm. So that's really what that was. And then
okay. I wish my dad would do that.
I actually had some of the timelines off. So it was around 2006. Reason I quit dairy, and dairy was because I wanted to start losing some pounds. So that time period between 2006, 2008, I lost around about 60 pounds. Mm-hmm. And then I had a coworker who was vegetarian, and I just loved her vibe and how she moved. And I was like, okay, tell me a little bit more about vegetarianism. So in her explanation, she talked about veganism. And I heard about vegan, maybe like on Doug, and that's a cartoon series from some of the younger people out there, and a lot of different things. I was like, okay, this sounds interesting. Once again, challenging myself, I'm going to go vegan. I have to probably just eliminate poultry, eggs, and yeah, that's about it, and I'll be vegan. So I did that, was rocking and rolling, found all my creature comforts. Whole Foods was like, a daily destination for me. And then I went to Los Angeles in 2009. I remember.
Hold on. I'm going to stop you right there. I'm going to stop you right there because I want to be the one to introduce where I think you're going. Okay. I want to know, how did you end up at Michael Jackson's funeral? And second of all, what happened?
Yeah.
Rest in peace, brother. Rest in peace.
Yeah, seriously. Wow. So I booked a trip to Los Angeles prior to his passing. And this was for an anime convention, one of the many projects that I ran. And I just went out there, captured footage and what have you. But it was at the convention center, which is right next to the Staples Center, like walking distance to the Staples Center. And it was just a sea. It was actually pretty interesting to see a bunch of people in cosplay and people dressed up as Michael Jackson, and the news media on every single block. But memorable experience. But yeah, I was out there, and the interesting thing about me being in Los Angeles and eventually falling off being vegan is that Los Angeles is like the number one destination as of right now for the vegans in the United States. So the fact that I fell off in this environment made me realize what I get to add to the equation. And it wasn't that there weren't resources. I think Happy Cow might have been out around that time. I just didn't know it existed. It's like not knowing what you don't know.
When you say fell off, what do you mean you fell off? Like
I
what
ate something that wasn't vegan. You know, I kind of
felt mad guilty.
not even. It's just kind of, I wasn't doing it for the animals or anything like that. I was just doing it for a challenge at the time. There wasn't a lot of guilt on there. A little bit of guilt of like, you know, I was working on something and I kind of abandoned it. But nevertheless, what I realized during that time was that I needed to build a community, same way that I built a community for all these other projects. So I gave it maybe like a year, and then around 2012, started slowly getting back into it, doing some research, watching some documentaries. And my why at that time was building that community, because I love bringing people together. I love creating resources, creating media. So I joined a group called South Florida Vegans on Meetup. And at a certain point, the organizer left South Florida, so they dropped the group. I already was running 2 other meetups. I took it on as the new organizer, rebranded it as SoFlo Vegans, and then slowly built the website, got myself in the community, started working with a couple of nonprofits, and then launched officially in 2017, and then continued to grow from there.
What I find very interesting, I mean, I find a lot of things about you very interesting, but you've not only got this like mass media background, but you've also got an education background. And it seems that what you're doing with SoFlo Vegans is like, taking your experiences, and it's like a perfect blend of your talents, and you can just funnel them together, both the education and the mass media experience, to really get the word out about veganism. Am I on the right track?
100%. That's a good way of summarizing it.
And I know that you created something called Top Spot USA. Do you want to tell me about that?
Yeah, Top Spot USA. So yeah, my friend at the school I was working, I've been in education for 12 years. I early retired in 2017. Just he was into music, into alternative rock music. I was doing my anime thing, and I was like, hey, let's partner up. So we did. We started going to covering local musicians in South Florida, mainly in like the alt rock scene. And we just fell into some amazing opportunities and started running with that. You know, we ended up interviewing over 300 artists. And mind you, this was like 2008 to 2012 was the time period we did this. So we interviewed Flo Rida, Scott Storch, a lot of cool people, and started a record label. So it was a good learning experience. The big thing about it was just letting me know, like, anybody you want to reach out to is accessible. You just have to have something that they're interested in, and you have to present it in such a way that it's a no-brainer for them. And I just took that recipe into the podcasting, into everything that I do, and was very fortunate to have that experience.
Now, what I found fascinating is, among other things, is that here you are, and it sounds like, you know, with your media production background, you're doing hip hop, you're doing anime, you're doing all these things that it's kind of like somebody from the outside looking in is like, man, he's got the life, man. He's crushing it. He's going to LA. He's doing something he's passionate about, music and all these things that, you know, so many people would love to break into. Now you just made a left turn and you're like dedicating your life to veganism, which is, I guess, from the outside looking in, some people might think is less sexy, like in the music industry. I think some people would obviously disagree. But how do you square that circle from the person who's looking at the outside, being like, man, he had it all. Something must have happened to really feel this passionate about this new chapter in his life.
Yeah, I mean, the other projects that I did were more interests. So now what I'm doing is I'm promoting my lifestyle.
Mm.
You know,
that's a wonderful distinction. Yeah.
You know, and I'm still into music. I'm actually just reconnected with my former partner, and we're working on a documentary. You know, kind of using a lot of the footage that we've created over the years and doing some cool stuff with that. So I'm still going to be doing music stuff. I'm, you know, eventually going to do the anime stuff and just bring in a new team and just kind of support them. So all these projects are more on the back burner than anything. Education, I'm stepping back into that and helping underserved communities with the program that I developed over the last 14 years. So that's in the works. So what I've learned from that time until now is that, one, we have one life. You know, I have one life and I get to make the most of it. There's no limits on what I can do. I just get to do the work, figure it out. And for me, that's the fun part, the process. I learned to enjoy the process. So there's a lot of cool things that are brewing. And I feel like at the age of 40, I just turned 40, I've matured to the point where I can take all of these life experiences and continue to learn and grow and share with the world. And that's where I am in my life right now. It's like I get to take all my experiences and I get to share what I've learned and help the next generation, hopefully have as much fun as I did.
So, you're a brother, all right? I'm a brother, you're a brother, all right? And, when I think about some of the things that, plague underserved communities, one of the things that jumps out is, health outcomes, and a lot of which has to do with diet, and a lot of which has to do with resources. Getting something at McDonald's is a lot cheaper than getting something at Whole Foods, right? Mm-hmm. And not everybody, especially these days with inflation, I mean, it's hitting people's purses in a way we haven't seen in quite some time. Aside from education, how do we actually give people the resources to not only educate themselves and want to be vegan and want to eat a happier lifestyle, but also to be able to actually do it?
Of course, the number one way is to be the change that you want to see. It's to be an example. It's to showcase the examples of people who have done it successfully, create opportunities for people who are looking to do that, to be in the same room as these people so they can ask questions directly. It's to figure out what are those obstacles that are preventing them from being able to do those things, and providing support, not help, but support, so that those obstacles are lifted. So I see a lot of people in the community, they're working on economic empowerment. They're working on, eliminating food deserts. They're providing grow gardens. There's a lot of things that are happening. So what I see my role in it is I'm a communicator. If this were the Renaissance, I'm the scribe going around with the Sir Lancelot singing the tales of these incredible warriors. And that's how I play a role.
Now, unfortunately, not only for the sake of my listeners, but also for my own sake, because my guests know that I'm a nerd and I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to soak up knowledge every day. So I'm going to have to ask you this question, which I'm sure you've been asked a million times, but I don't care. I want to know. I have no clue what the difference is between being vegan or vegetarian, or even, I remember this phrase was being thrown around some time ago about being macrobiotic and all this stuff. I have no idea what the difference is between these things. Can you shed some light?
Yes. All right. So we'll start with veganism. Veganism is you're doing it for the animals. You're not consuming any animal products, using any animal byproducts to the best of your ability. Sometimes you may not realize it, and it's not like, you have to self-report to some agency to say, okay, I got into a car that had leather. There's it's not to beat yourself up on it, but it's just a guidelines to follow if you want to limit how much harm you're doing to animals. Then you have vegetarianism, which is similar, but you are still consuming animal byproducts. So you're doing dairy, you're doing, mainly dairy is the main thing. And maybe you're doing honey. Extreme. I wouldn't say extreme. It's just that we're not consuming any animal byproducts or using any animal byproducts, which isn't that hard. You just need to have a guide on kind of how to do it. So those would be the main differences. Another distinction I want to put in there too, which isn't often discussed, but it comes up a lot, is plant-based. So a lot of people, especially celebrities that you hear about, are actually plant-based, if you want to go with labels, which follows along the same lines as veganism, but they may not be as strict as saying, I'm not going to wear leather shoes, or they may consume honey. They're really doing it as a diet, not as a lifestyle. So you'll see a lot of people, like maybe you have chicken wings on the weekend, or maybe they're 80-20. Like one of the things that I would say doesn't exist is an 80-20 vegan, because you're not going to be not for the animals 20% of the week. So it's that's not your motivation, if that's not your why, I'm not going to say that's fine, but I'm going to honor that. Just plant-based, because as a movement, we're working on, shaping the hearts and minds of people that are out there to adopt this lifestyle. And when someone says they're plant-based and then 2 weeks later they're on video, eating at Wingstop, it hurts the movement, because it shows that, these people who are taking a leadership position by using a public platform to say they are vegan, it brings us back. So that's why I do make that distinction between plant-based and vegan. And the doors are always open for you to, fully step into the vegan lifestyle. But I don't feel like you have to feel pressure to do it if you're not intrinsically motivated to be that.
It sounds like at the center of veganism is a moral incentive.
Correct.
And pardon me if I lost something in the translation, but so are you saying that being plant-based is at the core of veganism, or that there's a distinction between being plant-based and vegan?
There is a distinction between being plant-based and vegan.
Yeah, can you run that by me again? I'm soaking it all in.
So to put it very simply, the plant-based is a diet, veganism is a lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And in the vegan lifestyle, you're not consuming any animal products, you're not consuming any animal byproducts, and there's no wavering on that. There's no, I'm going to have a cheat day coming up. You're taking an ethical stance of not doing any harm to animals. Plant-based is more focused on the food that you consume. It's making sure that you're not eating any of those products that you may have, I'm not, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying there aren't plant-based people who aren't doing it for the animals, but there's definitely a difference in it. Like a vegan may eat nothing but vegan junk food. I feel like people who are plant-based are doing it because they want to improve their health. So
coincidentally, I've got some plant-based, quote unquote, chicken nuggets in my freezer. So if I eat those and wash it down with a glass of milk, I'm not being vegan. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, you're not being vegan. You're not being vegan because you're consuming milk, and there's a lot that goes into making the milk that is, like, if you watch some of the videos and you see what they're doing, if you're doing it for the animals, you would not feel compelled to drink milk, especially with all the alternatives that exist.
Right. So it sounds to me that you're pretty much, a libertarian when it comes to, hey, do you eat what you want and whatever. But I think that it's kind of like the thing that gives you pause is when people aren't being strict to the definition of vegan in their actions, because their words say vegan, but their actions say another thing, and it hurts the movement. Am I getting that right?
I'm not necessarily, because I'm vegan. I'm actually vegan for compassion. Mm-hmm. Over everything, because I've seen, even in the vegan community, I see a lot of self-righteousness. I see judgment. I see hatred. And obviously I see that outside of the vegan community, but I don't think it's spoken enough by vegans about the way the world sort of pushes us in a direction where it's a us versus them mentality. And for me, I don't like talking about it because I truly believe in actions and states of being. So I practice compassion to show as an example of what I want. And that is a quote from Gandhi, I believe, but I truly believe that in my heart, that I get to be the change that I want to see in the world. And I get to practice it every day. And, by me showing up that way, it may make someone want to maybe explore veganism a little bit more, rather than, me having hatred in my heart for what you're doing, and that hatred manifesting itself in hostility towards a person, because for me, that's not a way to enroll somebody into a lifestyle. You're not asking them to give it up for Monday or Tuesday or maybe Wednesday. You're asking them to change their entire lifestyle. And if I'm observing and I equate this to religious, I'm not super religious, I'm spiritual, but I experience it. Like if somebody is Christian and they're coming to me and they're saying, you're going to go to hell if you don't do this, and you're wrong and you're bad, that's not going to enroll me to that lifestyle. Even if I believe what they're saying, I don't want to show up in that way to the people that I love. So that would repel me from wanting to do that lifestyle. So for me, in seeing that, it's like, okay, I get to showcase all the great vegan food that's in my community. I get to provide resources for people who are inclined to try things out. I get to give them space to fail and learn and to grow. And that gets to be my why. So that's why I didn't say yes to your answer, because I don't have judgment. And that's not what you're saying, but it can be perceived as, having judgment or energy on how you live your life. I have compassion for the way you live your life. I'm not gonna endorse what you do, but I'm gonna give you the room to make the choice. Because the other thing is, I'm 100% about choice. Like, you should have the choice of what you're doing, as long as it's not directly harming somebody else. Of course, you can go into other conversations about certain things, and I'm not going to touch that rail. But
right.
for me, it's about you having the ability to choose, and then me showing up in such a way that your choice may be a little bit easier because you see a pathway of being successful.
Wow, what an insightful answer, and I can feel, you ooze with sincerity, man. I have to tell you, and that's why I feel like I can ask you the following question. Okay, so the background is that I always proudly call myself a meatitarian. I love meat, like coincidentally, and it's just purely by coincidence. I was on a date. It was date night, and I took my girl to a Korean barbecue restaurant last night. It was delicious. And I'm eating meat like crazy, and every kind of meat, out of octopus, beef, and pork. And I'm sitting there eating, and I'm like, gosh, I've got this interview tomorrow morning with this and I was like, geez, this is so ironic. I wonder what he would tell me as, now I'm going to use a proper term, because I like the term you coined. So I'm a pre-vegan. If you had one shot to get me to start along the path as a pre-vegan, what would be the first thing you would tell me?
I guess what I would say is this. I would just share my experience. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because I'm not about changing who you are. I'm about just sharing who I am. And if it resonates, it resonates. You can ask me more questions. Where it clicked for me, even everything I told you about my journey, it wasn't until like maybe 2017 that it like really clicked to me. I had no intentions of eating animals or anything like that, but I spoke to an animal rights activist, and I, just like you speaking to me right now, she was showing up in such, her name is Susan Hargreaves. I always want to shout her out because she's an amazing individual. I asked her a very simple question, because I didn't know, like zoos. I said, why are zoos bad? And she just put it this way. I'm simplifying what she said, but she says, just put yourself in the position of that animal. Mm-hmm. Now ask yourself that question. Would you want to be in that situation? And to me, it was just like, oh, that makes sense, and then you see the videos and, there's a lot of cognitive dissonance in terms of this animal's good to eat. This animal you should never abuse. And it just didn't make sense to me logically for me to say, oh, anyone who eats a dog is bad and wrong, but people who eat pig, oh, what's up, bacon forever. And for me, it's like, they're both sentient beings. They both have fear. So why is it okay to eat one over the other? And then as you start interacting with the animals, you go to these sanctuaries and you see them come up to you and just want to be loved and petted and just loved on. It's like, wow, if I can get this message, if someone else can see that, this can spread to so many other things. I mean, like, I don't say forget animals, it's kind of a harsh thing, but let's just say shift to human interaction. A lot of the strife that we experience is because we see them as other. We see them as being different from us. And because they're different from us, depending on how isolated you are and to just being around people that are just like you, then they slowly become non-human. And then atrocities that we've seen over the world are easier to justify because you're looking at them as non-human. And that is put out completely on display in the vegan community because you're looking at animals as non-human, non-sentient beings. They're non-human, going to the classification, but I'm saying as non-sentient beings. And to me, that is the core of us, of the world healing. And for us coming together, being one, is to be able to see that the person next to me is going through the same stuff I'm going through. They just happen to look different. They may have a different life experience to me. And then I just removed the idea that animals don't experience that as well. So I look at a human the same way I look at it as an animal. Like, I'm not going to go up and pet a human. I'm going to go up to an animal and catch the vibe the same way I go up to a human. So it's just making that adjustment, making that shift in my life. And once I made the connection that all animals are sentient beings that love, their offspring, that want to live, that get happy, that want to play ball with you, that, just want to have a life. And it sucks that we have to cultivate them just for because we like the way it tastes. The argument is no longer there that it's for nutrition. There's lots of white papers and clinical research and all that type of stuff to show that it's not, you don't need animals to be healthy. There's just not a lot of legs to stand on for someone to say, I have to eat meat. I truly don't believe that. It's your choice to eat meat. And I guess I'll just continue to show up and hopefully you'll consider another option.
Man, you're dropping a lot of philosophy, a lot of knowledge, man. I can feel your passion, and you know what? I can't, as an intellectual, I can't disagree with a single word you said. I mean, even though I loved when you mentioned cognitive dissonance, because I'm someone that throws around that word, that phrase every once in a while, and I really mean it. But now I'm feeling like I've got cognitive dissonance myself, So, you just, even in just those 2 minutes, you create a spark. You make someone think, you got a point, and you never know where that spark might lead. I'm not making any personal promises. I'm just saying that, I might have to wait and read your book, brother, which we'll get to in a minute, before I start making hardcore life changes. But everything you say makes perfect sense, and I can't get mad at that. And I love that, as a matter of fact. So look, let's connect veganism and your background, your passion for it, and South Florida, because I know that you're based in Fort Lauderdale. So there's our Florida connection for our Fresh Mix folks. What is your quick history with South Florida? And I know that you've said that, on your website, which runs the gamut of anything mass media related, is extremely impressive. All the mediums that you're using to get the word out about veganism. On your website, you say that there's a timeline of the development of veganism in South Florida. Let's talk about South Florida, man. What's your history here? And let's talk about why, you want to use South Florida as a hotspot to, really shine a light on veganism.
Yeah. So much like The Rock, South Florida is my home. I've lived here my entire life. That was a little wrestling throwback.
I got it.
I was born in Miami Beach, lived most of my childhood in North Miami. Miami Gardens, North Miami. I call Miramar my hometown. I went to Hallandale magnet program. I lived in Plantation, Sunrise. So I bleed South Florida. My whole family left. They're in Orlando and Atlanta, and I'm like, okay, I'm holding it down here. So in that, I've been in multiple industries I mentioned earlier, and I've noticed a common thread in all of those industries in terms of community, people showing up, getting together, supporting each other. And a lot of it comes from South Florida has a culture of supporting winners and not so much the up and comer. And I feel that has a lot to do with us being a transient community. And you can see it in the sports as well. Like right now, the Heat, everybody loves the Heat. But the Dolphins, a different story. I feel like that support should be there regardless of whether you're winning or not. And you see that in cities like Boston, you see that in Chicago, you see in a lot of different, Philly for sure, a lot of Atlanta, a lot of different places. Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing, you still got your back because that support is important, especially with what we're asking you to do. And you have a lot of people living in South Florida who won't even claim it. You wouldn't even know Johnny Depp is from Miramar. All the exports that come from our area it should be like, hey, this is where I'm from.
I had no idea about Johnny Depp. That's crazy to me. I'm still processing that, but go ahead.
You know what I mean? So it's like, there's so many other people too on that list. And it's like, I want people to feel proud of South Florida. I want people to feel like I don't have to leave and go to LA and go to all these different places and boost their economies and their name recognition. That should happen here in South Florida. So I want, once again, going back to what I was saying, instead of me complaining about it, I'm being the change. I want to be that person that proudly, no matter even if I decide to live in Los Angeles or New York, like I'm always going to have my home here in South Florida and carry it on my back for as long as I'm alive. And that's why I have that mission of making South Florida a global hotspot for veganism, because if I can do it here, I can do it anywhere in the world.
Woo, I love that. I mean, and you mentioned before that, LA, obviously, veganism is very popular there. What other than, LA, South Florida, what other places jump out at you as other global hotspots, to use your words?
I would definitely say New York. You have Portland. Austin is starting to boom. Orlando has a pretty good scene, and they're usually recognized outside of the United States. I think number one, and I see a lot of lists, is Germany, Berlin. Israel has I think Israel is like probably one of the first nations that have not fully adopted, but have adopted it as like not a niche thing. London is the epicenter, I would say, because they coined the term vegan, which that's another topic, is terms of veganism isn't unique to any of these places. You see it in the Caribbean, especially Jamaica with the Rastafarian lifestyle, the Ital lifestyle. You have it in the Seventh-day Adventist community. There's lots of little communities that may not claim veganism, but they're vegan. But in terms of the branding of veganism, these are places that, definitely pop out.
And so, first of all, I want you to rattle off the list of all the different mediums that you're using to get the word out. And I want to ask you about one thing in particular, which you think is the most effective, because I already know the answer. But what are all the ways you get the way out? Come on, let the people know. It's impressive.
So we started with the events. Doing monthly events. We've done over 300 to this point since launching in 2017.
Wow.
We have the podcast, which is an amazing, amazing way to get the word out and to connect, even more so to connect with other people. We have the magazine, which we just recently launched, a digital magazine, but we're working on getting printed magazines distributed at festivals and events in the area. We have obviously the website. It's an online resource, which folds into the mobile app, which you have it directly on your phone. Social media, we're extremely active on Instagram, starting to get more into the TikTok. Wow. Into TikTok. Those
That's what happens when you turn 40, bro.
You start saying, no, get off. I got to get off the Facebook. Oh, even Facebook is a dated reference. So anyways, those are all of the different platforms. I'm sure I'm probably missing one or two, but those are the main ones.
Okay, right. So I know that I saw an interview where you said that no one's really asked you, what's the most effective medium, and you said it's when it's face to face at these events, because it's about building relationships. Tell me a bit more about that, about these events. What happens at these events? Where do you have them? You said you've had over 300. I did not know that. That's amazing. So bring me into your event world a little bit.
Yeah, so we do everything from smaller events like dinners. We just had a sold out dinner at a restaurant called Full Bloom, which got #1 vegan restaurant in the country last year around July. I forget the publication, but it was a nice publication.
Where's that? Where's it located?
It's located in Miami Beach. So
really?
James Street. So if you look them up,
I can walk there. Oh, I know. Okay. Yeah, no, seriously. I could seriously walk there if I wanted to. Yeah.
Yeah. Full Bloom is definitely awesome. But yeah, we do dinner events. We did happy hours. We worked with a lot of festivals. So we'll have like speaking stages. We work with some where we've done, vegan rap battles, seafood and wine. We've done so many awesome things with them. So we work with we do smaller events. We work with larger events. But the beautiful thing about the events is that you can actually have conversation with someone. You can actually make a connection, and it goes so much deeper, cuts so much deeper than just the social media interaction or sending an email, because you get to actually experience the energy of that other person and truly resonate and connect. And so I love events, and I felt, what the absence of events feels like over the last 2 years. And even a year before that, we started scaling down some of the smaller events, but we're definitely back at it, partnering up. Oh, also the other thing too, with these events, you're always partnering with another organization or business. So that just helps build your network and let more people know that you exist. So there's so many benefits to in-person meetings and even showing up and networking that it's always going to be the #1 source. You may not reach as many people, but you make a deeper connection, and those people tend to stick around a lot longer.
Don't hesitate to shoot me an email. Let me know next time you're in South Beach, because I'll definitely catch you. No problem. That's definitely that's a layup. Can you cook, bro?
I am my favorite chef.
Okay. Oh wow. Okay.
Because I know exactly what I want, and I have the opportunity to perfect what I want. So yes, I can cook.
Do you personally, or SoFlo Vegans, do you push or promote particular vegan products?
Yeah, there are a few that we've been able, once again, build relationships with. I've actually, liked the product. We'll definitely give shout outs to one. I've definitely shout out Hodo tofu. I was never a big tofu person, but I had the opportunity to, speak with them, have them prepare it, show me different ways of doing it. One time they came down here and did this mini event. And yeah, I've grown to really love their products. So yes, I do work with different brands and what have you.
Bring me into your kitchen. So you're going to make dinner for yourself tonight. What are you making?
Oh man, my go-to would be like a fried rice. So I would just make some brown rice. I will use the Hodo, their burger, throw it in the air fryer, chop it up into little pieces, throw it into the rice, use some sprouts, do some just egg, fry that up, scramble it, throw it in the mix, then put a condiment on top as the base. I actually season up the fried rice with some select seasonings. Put that in, and I'm good to go. Fry up some plantain. Plantain. I call it plantain, not plantain. You slice that.
People call it plantain, but
the Jamaican, Caribbean, we call it plantain.
Right.
Slice that bad boy up. Put that on some coconut oil. Have that as a nice little side with the fried rice. That's like my go-to favorite meal.
Yeah, well, that sounds delicious. First of all, how do you spell Hodo, just in case people want to check it out?
Hodo.
Hodo. Okay, I just wanted to get that out of the way. And then, so yeah, that sounds delicious. But let me ask you an honest question. Since you haven't had meat so long, I mean, what you just described sounded so good. Can you even remember what meat tastes like to an extent that, what you're eating, whether you can even remember whether it tastes anything like meat or it doesn't, or the tasting like meat is irrelevant? It's more like you just like the way this tastes. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I don't want to taste meat. Meat is disgusting. Mm-hmm. It's always been disgusting.
Okay.
And it's because I say that because it's not the meat, it's the seasoning. Like how many chicken cutlets have you eaten without seasoning?
Zero.
I personally would never do that. So really, I don't miss it because I'm eating the same types of food. Even to the ground beef. That was my favorite meal growing up. Having some ground beef, white rice, some ketchup. I'm like, as I'm eating it. So I've been able to replace that with Beyond Meat crumbles, put the same seasoning on there, tastes no different. So to answer your question, I remember how meat tastes because it tastes exactly the same. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some things that have their own flavor within the vegan thing. You just got to find the right thing that works for you because it's not meat there. It's actually plants and a lot of different other items mixed together that have their own flavor footprint.
Okay. Now let's get into the shameless plug phase of our interview. So I want to know all about this book, Pre-Vegans. And like we talked about before, I really love that you coined the phrase pre-vegan as opposed to non-vegans. So explain your philosophy behind pre-vegans versus non-vegan.
I'm a very spiritual person. I believe the words that you use are used to manifest what you want in your life. And if we're focused on non-vegans, I feel like we're missing an opportunity to create a welcoming atmosphere for them to want to become vegan. And to be honest with you, I'm not really hung up on labels, but I do see the importance of you being able to deliver a message effectively by using them. So that's why I haven't abandoned them. So pre-vegans it's designed for anyone who is remotely interested in the lifestyle. It's going to give you stories from some of the loudest voices in the community who are up to really big things that we've had on our podcast. We're taking excerpts from our conversation, much like you did. Our lead question is always, what's your vegan origin story? And in that vegan origin story, they're sharing how they entered this lifestyle. And the goal of the book is for you to be able to read multiple vegan origin stories and maybe see yourself in one of those stories and show that it is possible. Like this person started as a butcher and they ended up, running the largest vegan, organization in the world. I'm making that scenario up, but, that might spark something and someone say, oh, I can do this, and I have resources because also as a part of the book will be an online resource attached to the book that you would be able to opt in if you so choose. That will literally be videos of a lot of these stories in the book, additional content that will be uploaded on a weekly basis, PDFs, shopping lists, all this stuff will be at your disposal. So that way there's nothing stopping you from excelling on your journey.
Fantastic. So it's all access, getting everything you need, all the resources you need. Are all these stories coming from people that you've had on your podcast? I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, there's stories from people that I've had on my podcast, as well as some, one or two stories that haven't been on our podcast. Mm-hmm. And it's just raw conversations. It's written very conversationally. You get to see the emotion of what that person was saying and how they were saying it. And these stories were really impactful and powerful. And it showed me that not everybody's story is the same. And that's the other part that I want to illustrate. You're not going to hear the same story with each person. Each person along the way had seeds that were planted. And then every time they met somebody else who was just showing up and being their authentic selves, that was water on that plant until that seed finally sprouted. They were ready to, move forward. And I'm hoping that this book plants a seed in everyone that reads it. And then the next person that they decide to interact with is just continuing to water, let them blossom.
Awesome, man. And so, I recently interviewed a wonderful guest named Angie Willoughby, who's AKA the Green Baker. And we talked about cooking cannabis-infused food, just to put it simply. And one thing she talked about is, as a Black woman in this industry, how in her industry, kind of there isn't a ton of representation, and we talked about what that's like, and breaking into the industry and trying to motivate other people not to be daunted by that, et cetera, et cetera. As a Black man, have you noticed any kind of first of all, is there a significant presence of people of color in the kind of the vegan world? And secondly, do you feel that being a Black man in that area affects things one way or the other?
I think it's misleading a little, because my experience is that there are a lot of people of color in the vegan community. Mm-hmm. The difference is representation. A lot of the media outlets aren't operated by, and that's no different than any industry. Mm-hmm. You have people who participate in it, but the people who actually own it and are pushing it out don't necessarily reflect the audience. So it's not, I don't believe in most cases, it's malicious intent that they're, purposely blocking people. I just think that you lean more towards what's familiar. Mm-hmm. You're telling your story, and your story might not necessarily include, the Black community. It might not include, the Indian community or whatever community. So it's easy to forget that. That's why it's good to have diversity around you. And I do my best to have that as well. I don't just have all Black people working with me. I work with whoever shows up, and I represent myself at all times. So I would say I work with a lot of people, especially in South Florida, that are Black business owners, Hispanic business owners. And my role is to be an additional platform that is operated from a perspective of, we get to be inclusive to all communities, especially the communities that can use our support the most. And that just happens to be people of color at this present moment. But I'm hoping that changes, and we can just start having conversations about people who are economically disadvantaged regardless of your situation. I'm hoping that we're not always in a perpetual state where we have to do extra work for the Black community. And that should be the goal for everyone. Like, we all have economic opportunities. We all have the ability to, become wealthy if we so choose that path. And I see a lot of good work, though, happening to move us in that direction. We're not always looking for support, but there's a lot of work and a lot of systems that get to be restructured for us to get to that point.
Wow, fantastic. Well, look, brother, you've interwoven throughout this entire conversation is just a ton of food for thought, pun intended. and I really appreciate it, man. I mean, we touched on so many things that I'm gonna let marinate, and I hope for another pun. I hope that our audience does too. My last question for you is just for me. I'm taking a little bit of license as the host, because I want to know the answer. What did you eat in LA when you fell off? I want to know what it was. Be specific.
Oh man,
Was it an In-N-Out burger? What was it?
No, it wasn't anything like that. I want to say it was a cheese pizza, which feels wrong because I stopped eating cheese even before I went vegan, but that is what's coming out for me. I remember going into a Ralph's, and if anyone's listening right now and you just started your vegan journey or you're thinking about it, at that time, and even a little now, I wasn't that big into veggies, if that sounds weird. Like I would blend them and I would have my powders and stuff like that, but I wouldn't like walk into a supermarket and be like, all right, let's go to the produce aisle, dinner time.
Right.
So that was really what hurt me. Like I wanted cooked food and I couldn't get it with just going to the supermarket. So I think it might have been a cheese pizza from Little Caesars.
Okay. All right. And now I know. Interesting. All right. But never again, right? Never again.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So listen, you've got events all the time. Are there any events in particular or anything else coming up that you want to promote while you're here with me on the mic?
I would just say that there's so many things going on, things in the works. The best way to find out about any of our events, because we also showcase other events that even if we're not involved, on our calendar. So just, go to SoFloVegans.com or download our app, search for SoFlo Vegans, and you'll have direct access to all these events. And then obviously, if you follow us on social at SoFlo Vegans, you will also get posts and stories about a lot of these events and get a taste of what South Florida is cooking. Everything is at SoFlo Vegans, one word, on social. So we're on, I'll go by platforms based on how much activity we do. So Instagram is definitely our number one place where we put out content. We have YouTube, TikTok, we're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn, we're on, I feel like I'm missing one. I think we have an account on Pinterest, eventually going to start posting everything out on that. But those social media, yeah, that's the best place. And then our website, mobile app, you search SoFlo Vegans, you'll find it. You'll see our logo. And those are the best places to connect with us and see what we have going on. And of course, we have a membership on our website as well, which gives you promotion, access to exclusives, and it also helps sustain our operations so that we can keep doing this and build a team around what we're doing. So regardless of where my journey takes me, we still have representation in South Florida for all these amazing vegan businesses and nonprofit organizations.
Did you mention that you're on Facebook or no?
That's the one I'm missing.
Yeah.
Wow. Facebook. We're on Facebook for sure.
What a meta moment that was.
Seriously.
Okay. Yeah. Because I don't want to forget anything. All right. Well, look, that's great, man. So is your book still scheduled to come out this month? What's the deal?
So yes, that's great. I just before this call had a call with my team, and we officially locked in April 4th as the date for when the book will come out.
You never know what might spark a change in your philosophy, your lifestyle, your happiness, your health. And, if you have the conviction to make that life change, then you never know. It seems like it could be a win-win all around. But, educate yourself, see if it's for you. But this is definitely what an amazing jump off point it is, getting the insight from you. And I really appreciate you, Sean, for sharing your story and so many nuggets of wisdom. And I'm just I've got a lot to think about. And anytime that I leave an interview with my brain buzzing like this, that's a good thing, brother. So I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Wow. So I think that this is the one interview where I was completely, with the exception of maybe the ghost hunting interview we did earlier on with Chrissy Summer, but I really knew very little about veganism or other than generally, not, eating animals and whatever, but I didn't know the differences between that and vegetarianism or, living a plant-based lifestyle. So to me, it was a complete nerd orgasm. Okay. So I loved every second of it. Has it caused me to make any life decisions? Maybe some mild ones. Yeah. I mean, I was already trying to think about how can I replace certain things that I'm eating. But for me, it's all about the taste. I mean, ever since I had my first Impossible Burger at Burger King, and by the way, just so you know, I never, ever eat fast food, almost never. But I was very enticed by this thought of this Impossible Burger that would taste exactly like a Whopper. And let me tell you, it does. It does. But then Sean would probably say, yeah, but did your Whopper have cheese in it? I'd be like, yeah. He'd be like, then you ain't vegan. All right, man. You got me. All right. So, but these are the distinctions that I wanted to get into. And I have so many more questions. I found it very intellectually stimulating and enlightening. So, having said that, what I wanted to talk about in my fresh take is not necessarily about, whether I was persuaded or not, but I really found it poignant that he made a distinction between having an interest and having a lifestyle. So it seems that, the music and all the other things that he was into were interests, and he might still have those interests and he might still delve into those. But he found something that he felt so passionate about, he wanted to make it a lifestyle. And it sounds to me like an interest is more like a hobby, and it can come and go. Right now I'm playing table tennis. Am I going to play table tennis forever? I mean, hopefully. But I've had several interests in my life, whether it be tennis, basketball, I could go on and on. But my lifestyle is working out, healthy living, eating the right things, which, is, parallels what we're talking about now. But he's talking about a specific niche of a lifestyle. It makes one think, what are you doing in your life that is somewhat permanent or at least long lasting? It sounds to me that interest can be fleeting, but a lifestyle can be forever. And a lifestyle is something you have to really dedicate yourself to in order to embed it in your DNA and your daily routine and the way that you speak about it, the way you think about it, the way that you speak to others about it. It continues to resonate with me. I'm going to continue to let it marinate. And you should think about that as well. The only other thing I would say as a side note is that he made a parallel between, kind of how he approaches, I don't want to say converting because that sounds too religious, but, just informing people about veganism, comparing it to religion. And I couldn't agree more, because whether or not you agree with how someone is approaching you and the things that they're saying to you, it's the method of the approach and the tone and the forcefulness that could turn you off to something that you otherwise would agree with. You can apply that principle broadly to so many different things. If you're here on Earth to try to help people become better human beings, then I would adopt my philosophy, which I've held for a very long time, that it's much easier to attract bees with honey, right? So think about that. Don't think about just the words you use, but your approach. Will I become a hardcore vegan? Probably not. But I definitely have been nudged further down the path of thinking more about not only my own health, but the results of my actions. And isn't that what it's really all about? That's my fresh take. I can't wait for you to all hear the next episode of the Fresh Mix podcast. Thank you for listening. For details and show notes about today's show and our guests, go to freshmixpodcast.com. I'd really love your feedback, both on today's guest and on my fresh take. The Florida Podcast Network has a closed Facebook group exclusively for superfans of their shows like Florida's Fresh Mix. So we all look forward to hanging out in there with you. Just search for FPN Insiders on Facebook to leave us comments, get early scoops, contests, and other special treats. Or you can just complain about Florida's, how random animals end up in your yard. And I'm not talking about alligators and crocodiles, folks. I'm talking about pigs. Oh, you don't believe me? Well, literally today, producer Jemmy posted an adorable video of a pig, a big, gray, adorable pig that just showed up randomly in her neighborhood. And she took pictures with it and took video of it. And I gotta say, we just talked a lot about veganism and whatever. I've never met a pig up close. I saw a video of my sister with this pig, and I was thinking, oh man, am I gonna be able to eat that after? All I'm saying is that in Florida, anything can happen. So anyway, be sure to visit all the great shows on the Florida Podcast Network. You can find them at floridapodcastnetwork.com. Keep catching Who's Fresh in the Florida Mix with the Florida Fresh Mix podcast.
Flintstone Media has been the digital messaging bedrock of several brands and businesses, serving as a highly resourceful podcast production house and consultancy firm for over 6 years. Visit flintstonemedia.com for podcast samples. From show development and setup through recording and distribution, work with a leader in the industry and add a new podcast to your brand's content offerings. That's flintstonemedia.com.